And we're back again. I'm Shawn with DevoApparel.store, and this is Inspired Conversations. And today we have a very special guest with us, Joshua Smith. How's it going?
It's going good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you do. I mean, I know, but the viewers. So.
Yeah, for those who don't know me out there, I am a filmmaker, I'm an actor, director, I'm a man of many trades in entertainment, but mainly what I do now is I direct and act in films primarily. Um,
That's
I
awesome.
also just started up a production company, so kind of venturing off a little bit into directing more commercials and um, doing commercials, music videos, and narrative, but focusing on like documentary styled commercials and narrative style commercials for now. But
I remember when we first linked on Hi-Ho, I think it was, and we came across each other. And for people who don't know, that's the platform where you just ask questions and people answer it. And I think one of the questions was morning routine, and we were talking about creativity and how you keep creativity. And I remember the thing that stood out to me is you said that you would write like first thing in the morning. Like right when you woke up, you would just start your writing process because that was like the time of the day where you were just the most creative and just the most free to kind of express yourself. And that intrigued me because I'm the same way. If I wait to write my speeches, for instance, at the end of the day, I'm just grasping at straws. But if I do it at the beginning of the day, it may not mean that I write like a full speech, but now my mind is in tune to think about it all day. So now I'm seeing ideas everywhere I go. That person crossing the street is now an illustration. Me buying that apple at the store is now an illustration that I'm going to use to convey a point. Where if I didn't start my day with that thought process, I probably would have never seen it that way. And I'm sure when you're writing, when you're acting, when you're doing everything in entertainment that you're doing, I'm sure you have that same experience where everything starts to become inspiration for the creativity that you're putting out. Am I right on that?
yeah, definitely. I think it's important to start early in the day because, especially in entertainment, we're in a field where socializing late at night is the thing to do. And for me, before I got into entertainment, I was not my whole family and growing up. I've never been a night owl. I've always been more of a morning person. And so um, with entertainment, I think for me, I'm most productive in the morning. Like I've had some friends like, "Oh, let's make a song at like 2 a.m. in the morning." I'm like, I'm not gonna be much productive at all. You're gonna have to give me mad coffee. I'm gonna be cranky. I'm gonna be tired. Nah, I can't. And it's not even just for me. It's not just about how tired I am, but it's like all people got to think and realize that your whole day you're taking in information all day long.
Hmm.
Like millions of things are like popping in and out like in seconds. Like your brain is processing so much all day long, and then you get to the end of the day. Some people are most creative at nighttime. For me, I'm most creative in the morning because I haven't had a whole day's long worth of information my brain just processed to think about. Um, I feel like I'm most fresh when I have like a jump start to the day, because
Yeah.
sometimes you can have like this like information overload by the end of the day, and for me, it's easier in the morning because I'm more awake, I'm more alert. Um, I like the mornings. They're quiet. They're very peaceful. You don't hear too many cars outside. It's just
Hmm.
you just hear some birds chirping, and you just get to work. And so, having that morning routine, having not much information being processed yet, haven't looked at Instagram all day, haven't looked at Facebook or anything, and I'm just focused on this one task. My mind is so much more clear. So, yeah,
Yeah, I kind of wanted to start there because that was initially how me and you met each other and kind of linked up. And so I
yeah.
wanted to start with that idea of the morning routine because it's always interesting to me to hear different people's routines because like you said, for some people they're the night owl. That's when they're the most creative. So their schedule is flip-flop from mine or yours where it's like that's the process. They're going to be in the studio at 2 a.m. because that's when everything is clicking and flowing. But for me, I'm that early riser. I want to be just alone too. I don't want to be around anyone. I kind of want to just be in my room or be at the gym or wherever and just kind of zone out and just feed myself the things that I want to dwell on for that day, because I believe for me that's how my mind works. It is essential to what I do, because I know the days where I skip the gym and I skip that morning routine, the affirmations, the motivation, all that. If I skip all that, totally different results. I mean, it's night and day. The speed,
Yeah.
the accuracy, the wittiness. I'm even more like in tune with like my own personality when I do that. When I give myself that time of self care, is really what I think we're talking about. In addition to the morning routine, just how it makes you work on all circuits. So bouncing from that, now I'm gonna go way back. When did you start getting into the entertainment? I know you do. Even when you were saying everything you do, I was like, dude, you can just say all. You can just say everything if you want
Yeah.
to say that. But when did you first start getting into any aspect of that?
So it started back in, let's see, I was 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago. Started when I was about 16, 15 or 16. I was a sophomore in high school, and I first got into modeling before I got into acting and more so the entertainment side of things. But yeah, I started off modeling out in Boston. I would model for different brands and small like mom and pop brands I'd find on like Craigslist that were hiring models and stuff. And my agent at the time would get me out here and there. And then it was, I want to say, oh, well, yeah. So I did Boston, and then I started branching out into New York a little bit and booked some work out there. And then as I was getting more consistent modeling jobs, my agent was like, "Hey, there's this acting and modeling competition in New York. Do you want to go to it?" And I was like, "Sure." And basically, it was like it was like a huge agent convention. So basically, it's like a bunch of models and actors and performers all come, and agents from all around the world come and scout talent. And so I went to that, and my agent was like, "Well, do you want to go for like maybe hosting and try commercial acting?" I was like, "Well, I've never done that before, but why not?" So I go there. Didn't do well in the modeling competition actually, because it was just the competition was pretty fierce at the time. But with acting, I crushed it, and I think I won first place in the hosting competition,
Oh wow!
and then I think I got like runner up or second place in the commercial division for commercial acting. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm kind of good at this. And so I had a couple meetings with some agents, and I ended up going out to LA shortly after that. And at the time, I met my manager out there. I had a meeting with this one agency, and this guy was in the building, and he came up to me and in the hallway and was like, "Hey, are you an actor?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of just started out, but
Yeah.
I thought this guy was probably an agent or something." So I was like, "Oh yeah, so yeah, I'm an actor." And he's like, "Cool. Do you have your headshot and resume?" I was like, "Matter of fact, I do." So I handed it over to him, and he was like, "Okay." And I had like maybe 3 credits on there. It's nothing fancy at all. And he was like, "All right, well, where are you from?" I was like, "Well, normally I tell people I'm from Boston because it's just easier, but I'm from a small town called Peabody, Massachusetts." And he was like, "You're from Peabody?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm from Peabody." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm an acting manager." He's like, "Man, you got to come over to my office. Like, we got to chat." So later that week, and I only came out to LA for 1 week. So later that week, I go to his office, we meet, and he says, "Hey man, you're very green and you're very new to acting, but because you're from Peabody, I'll take you on because we got to help each other out." So I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "But you got to be serious. You got to be committed. I only take on serious actors. I mean, you look at his wall, it's just filled of like celebrities he's represented over the years. I mean, he's been around. It's been around the block, and
Yeah.
he had like thousands of scripts in his like main office area that his actors have booked over the years." And I was just like, "Whoa, it's just a very impressive office. Like, wow, this is where my dreams are gonna come true." And
Yeah.
so he ended up taking me on, and actually, funny enough, that week I decided to move to LA, and I told myself, I was like, all right, I need three things to stay in LA. I said, I need a job, I need a roof over my head, and I need representation. Well, I found the representation. I used to work at H&M in Peabody, but then I called Glendale, California, and I hit them up and I said, hey, I hit up a bunch of H&Ms. I was like, hey, I have an opportunity to move here and just wondering if you'll take me. And they're like, yeah, we'll transfer you. I was like, dope. So I got the job and I just needed a place to live. I was like, all right, I can't come out here homeless. So I looked on Craigslist and I found an apartment like within a couple hours. And I contacted the guy. He liked me. I liked him and liked the roommate situation. So I was like, I'm done. I'll be back in a week. So I moved back home, sold all my stuff very quickly, moved all the way back to California. Like this was October, the last week of October. By November 7th was my first day living in LA in 2015, and I've been here ever since.
So when you said it was October, last day of October, that was when you met the manager.
Yeah,
But you had been in. Was that at the end of your week in California? Because you said you went out there for a week. Was that like at near the end of your week? Was it at the beginning of the week when you met him? Or
I think it was about like midway through the week. And funny enough, I actually wasn't gonna. I didn't know it was possible to stay in California that quickly, to move that fast, because my original plan was to move out in January 2016 with a friend. So we had plans to do that, and I remember I was staying at my friend's apartment complex, and I was in the pool one morning, and this lady came up to me and we were chatting. She was asking me what my plans were and what brought me out to LA and stuff like that. And I was telling her, oh, I'm doing the acting thing and, you know, looking for representation. And I got a couple meetings this week, so we'll see how it goes. And my plans to move back in January. And she said, well, why don't you just stay? And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, like if you move back home, there's a chance you may not come back. Most people don't come back when they move back home. And I was like, well, I don't have these three things. She's like, well, can't you just sell your stuff back home or have your family help you sell it? And well, you're staying at your friend's place and sounds like, you could probably get representation this week. And I was like, well, maybe it's possible. And at the time I was praying hard that week. I was like, God, if you want me to stay, I need these three things. And he made it happen. By the end of the week, I had all three things I needed to survive out there and to make the transition happen seamlessly. And by the next week, I was in LA in my new apartment. It was crazy how fast it all happened.
yeah, I love that. That's the reason I wanted to go into like what part of the week you were on, because you got a little bit of traction and just wanted to put it out there like that, because a lot of times I think when we're chasing our dreams, just we universally, there's a lot of people out there, they feel like they have to have a lot of traction before they start making decisions, or they feel like they have to have everything lined out. But you didn't necessarily have everything lined out, but you did, because one thing happened and then you let that domino knock the next one over, knock the next one over. So in a week's time, you have all three things you need to actually just be there all the time. I think that's really neat. I think it's really awesome when we capitalize on the momentum that we get, because like to the point that lady was telling you, whoever this mystical magical lady was,
Yeah.
but she spoke life into you and into your dreams, because she said, hey, it's possible. So now in the back of your mind you're thinking, well, wait a minute, it could be possible. And so then as it starts to be set in motion, she's so right. Like a lot of people would have just moved back and it would have just been a dream. It would have just been something that set in the back of their mind. Yeah, I need to do that. Well, I got to get this done first. I got to do that. But because you found something right then, there was no waiting now. It's let's just do it.
Yeah.
It's set
Yeah.
in motion.
I was like, times now I got to act on it, because I was like, well, I think it really hit me when the manager took me on, because I was like, okay, this guy represents, like he represented like what's her name, Kerry Washington at one point, Heath Ledger when he first started out, represents Grant Gustin, who plays the Flash on CW. I mean, like, and a bunch of other people, Mark Ruffalo, huge people. And I was like, I gotta take this seriously, you know, like I just took that as a sign, like, yo, you know, they're not playing out here. So you gotta, you make that happen now, or who knows? Cause he probably was thinking too, like, well, we'll see if he actually makes it happen. And I
Yeah.
did. I was like, I'll be back. And I was in 1 week.
And
So,
it weeds out that way because, like you said, the thing that he told you was you got to take it seriously. You got to be all in.
oh yeah.
And
My,
oh,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
on.
No. You good? I want to hear.
I was gonna say my first couple of years out here in LA, I operated out of a place of it's weird. It's a weird motivational thing that I don't recommend now. I wish I had learned more about self improvement when I first got here,
Hmm.
because I operated out of like a place of fear of getting dropped by my manager. But it motivated me to stay on track, which is weird because a lot of times fear sets people back. But for
Yes.
me, it set me up for wanting. I think ultimately I feared disappointing him, and I didn't want to disappoint my manager at the time.
Hmm.
And I think that's where the root came from. And I was like, and I felt like I had this one chance. I was like, this is the chance. Like this, what? How often does someone come up to you in a sidewalk or in a hallway and give you the opportunity of a lifetime that you've always dreamed of? You know,
Yeah.
that rarely happens to people. And when it does, you got to go all in with that, you know, and you want to show the person you're serious. And, you know, he told me, all right, you know, what kind of acting do you want to do at the time? I didn't really know. So I was like, well, what kind of shows would I want to be on? I was like, well, Disney would be cool. You know, like, yeah, I could do some like fun Disney shows because I'm energetic at times. And he was like, okay, well, you're going to have to go to Groundlings, the School of Improv. And I was like, oh, okay. How much are classes? $600 for 4-week class. All right. Saving up for that. And so I went to Groundlings, and then when I couldn't afford any more acting classes after that, I was like, all right, I'm just going to go to the library and I'm just going to pick up every acting book I can possibly read. And around that time, that's when I met my, it's probably like half a year, maybe, I would probably say probably like a year in to LA. I met my mentor at the time who introduced me to the world of self-improvement.
Hmm.
And I ended up, you know, having access to his catalog of just hundreds of books and audiobooks of just self-improvement books. And I hadn't know about this world. I think at the time I was maybe 19, I think 19 or 20 ish, somewhere around there. I had never really heard about like self-improvement books and stuff, and wasn't really into it at the time. And I realized very quickly how important it was, because I was like, oh, I'm very focused on this one thing on acting, but other areas of my life are not great. They're not like financially I could be doing better. And, you know, when it comes to self-doubt and fear, like I need to take care of that too. You know, it's like things like that. I didn't realize because I was so focused on this one thing, acting. I was like, I got to make it as an actor. And once I dived into that self-improvement world, it was just like, just this joy of information overload that I was just so appreciative of, because I was like, wow, it's really helped form me into the man I am today. Is reading all those books and staying on track of that like motivational mindset. And for a period of my life there, I was doing motivational speaking,
Hmm.
like probably two and a half, yeah, probably 2.5 years into LA, maybe 3. I started doing motivational speaking because I was so inspired and on fire to show people like, yo, like if I can do it, you can do it, you know? And
Yes.
it was exciting, and it was a lot of fun. Anyway, that's my little rant.
No, I love it because one of the things, and I didn't point it out earlier, but I really love how you went for in New York in the competition. You went for the modeling, right? But what
Yeah.
you excelled in was something that maybe you didn't necessarily think you would, or maybe you didn't think you were to that point yet. You know, I don't know if ultimately you were wanting to go to acting and you were just trying to jump in modeling to get there. But regardless, it's like you go out there for that, but that's not the thing you excel in. The thing that you excel in is the acting, right? The
Yeah.
the hosting and the commercial and all that. So now it sends you on this trajectory. He says, "Hey, you got a shot, or I'll work with you. Let's do it, but you got to be all in." You get everything handled in a week, which I think is really impressive. And then I find it really interesting about how you said at first it was fear that motivated you, because I would agree with you that if you always operate in a posture of fear, ultimately that fear can control you and keep you from doing things, right? But there is
Yeah.
this sense in which it's kind of like a woman's driving down the road, right? She has her 6 month old baby in the back seat. Deer, I'm in Kentucky, so a deer jumps out in front of her and she swerves to miss it. She hits a tree, right? Her and her baby are trapped in this car, but somehow in that moment she has Hulk strength that she's never had in her life and will never have again. But in that moment, the adrenaline is so intense that she's able to pry open that door, pry open the other door, and get her baby out and be able to go and get help. Right? Those moments
Yeah.
happen where people have this insane adrenaline where they're able to have like this kind of superpower in that moment to accomplish something or do something that normally they couldn't. And usually the reason is because it's life or death, right? It's fly
Right.
or fly. Like they have to do it, or fly or fly. They have to do it. They're in a position where the back is against the wall, and the only way is to make a way, to not find one, but to make one. And so
Yeah.
I find it interesting that I don't think we can operate like that long term, right? Because I think eventually it becomes crippling if we don't
Yeah.
have it in its proper place.
Yep.
But I do think that angst, that struggle, whatever it is, just like that illustration I just painted with one, I think that angst can push us and it can motivate us. And some people call it different things. I always call it the angst, but the back against the wall. I tell people all the time, like that moment, that back against the wall, what you think is defeating you could actually be your greatest strength. Because when your back's against the wall, you're hungry in a different way. You know what I mean? You need it in a different way. You don't just want it, you need it. You have to have it. When you operate out of that, it's a superpower. So I can see how that is like you got the wind, at your back now. You feel like, okay, I'm going to get into motivational speaking too because I feel this. I'm pumped up, and it does. It's addictive, and you want other people to experience it as well.
Right.
And that's part of the reason why I'm doing this show and everything is because I'm not the number one motivational speaker or number one motivational brand right now. I will be. I'm not right now, right? And so I'm on the journey, but I want to show people the journey and the process. We don't have to wait until we've made it to be able to show people and inspire people, because the truth is, I mean, yes, I can learn a lot from someone who's made it, but at the same time, I relate more with the person who is making it, right? The person who's on the
Exactly.
journey, because they're coming from where I'm coming. You know what I mean? They've been there more recently. It's not been 10 years. It's not been 20 years. It's not been 30 years. We're creatures of habit. You get used to being made after a while, unless you continue to create that angst or that dog in you that pushes you and keeps you driving. So, anyways, I don't find it by chance that you would get into like motivation once you start diving down the self improvement and working on yourself. So, what are some of the things that at this time period was part of the mindset and part of the routine? Because you said you kind of started with the fear. What did that develop into, and what was some of the routine that went along with that mindset?
Some of the routines that I had at the time, I would I'd get up early, and the thing was too, I had one of my roommates, Lamar, at the time. I was always inspired by his hard work and determination, because he would get up early in the morning. He would do he would go Yeah, he would get up early in the morning. He'd go straight to, I forget if he made breakfast or not, but anyway, got up early in the morning, went to work, and then he'd come home, and then he would produce beats for the rest of the night, nonstop.
Mm.
And he'd do this every single day. And he would make his dinner at some point, but he was like, sometimes I forget to eat because I'm so into making this tune or this beat. And I had him as one of my roommates, and he always I was always inspired by his hard work. So I had him, another roommate that was also kind of into inspirational stuff too. So him and I would always connect on that, um, and that was inspiring. We had another roommate who was an actor who we would always just bounce acting ideas off each other and stuff, and would do little sketches and skits and stuff. So we would constantly we would constantly I was in a house full of people, full of motivated people, which was really dope because it it helped because I could have gotten out here, been in a very toxic household. Instead, I think it was like God put me there for a reason. I think He wanted me in that household around these certain people with a certain mindset, because everybody in that house was focused on
Yes.
different things. And part of my routine at that time was I would get up, I would work out, I would go travel to work. I used to take the bus and train. I'd have to take like a train, go to Hollywood, and then from Hollywood I'd have to take, I think it was like 217 or something, to Glendale, and take that bus all the way there. And then I had to I'd go to work, and then I'd get off work, come back. And on the ride home, I'd be reading books. On the ride to work, I'd be reading books, because I was like, well, I have all this downtime during the day while I'm traveling, so I might as well take that to learn. So a lot of that time was spent reading, learning. I'd come home. I would, I didn't, it's funny because I didn't practice acting as much at the time. How I practiced my acting was through doing sketches with my friends. My friend Edwin, who was one of my roommates at the time, we would do sketches, and I was starting to get a little bit into finding little short film scripts and doing those with my friends too. And we had some momentum with that. We were really focused on like improv and sketch comedy, and yeah, like my routine, it was still forming at the time. It wasn't super set in motion, but it was basically like work out, get up, go to work, learn on the way to work, learn on the way back from work, and when you get home, cook, and basically read some more. It was just I was like a sponge. I just wanted to absorb everything. So I was in a season of learning at that time. We're always in seasons of learning, honestly, but in that particular season, I sought out learning everything that I could in terms of self-improvement, in terms of acting, any acting book I could pick up, like I said. And honestly, funny enough, just want to tell this little story. My first motivational speech I did in LA, my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time. She helped me like post up flyers all over Hollywood. So I rented out this theater. It was like $25 an hour. I was like, oh, I can afford that. Great. So I posted these flyers all over Hollywood, like hundreds of them on like posts and stuff, and in different places, just tape them up on walls and different things. And long story short, went all over Hollywood and did this. And a couple days later, I was like, oh, what if this place is packed out? That'd be crazy. Well, it wasn't packed out. I had 5 people come in this like 50-person seat theater. And those 5 people were my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, her mom, who came all the way from San Diego, and my 3 roommates at the time, and my mentor at the time, who opened up the speech, basically. But we also live streamed it too, so people were there virtually. But 5 people came, and I remember telling my wife, I was like, all I care about is if one person comes. If I can get one person, I'll be happy. I mean, I ended up having 4 more than that come through, which was nice. Yeah. But it showed me that at the time that even when things don't come in excess in terms of your dreams, right? In terms of, for me at the time, it was wanting to fill up that room full of people, but I was content with if only one person came through. I think we as people should remember that it's okay when you're starting off. Like, and even at that time too, if I were to book a lead role in a Disney show, I'd my first year as an actor, I'd be so green, and I probably wouldn't have done as well as I would now,
Mm-hmm.
where I've had over 6 years of experience acting versus 1 year, And so, and my manager, he didn't send me out for big roles at the time either. He sent me out on student films that paid nothing. That was what he first sent me out on. He was like, "We gotta get you some experience. So let's build up that resume." And he's not getting paid from that. I didn't pay him a single dime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is out of the kindness of his heart. Sending me out. It meant more that he sent me out for student films than when he sent me out for big TV shows and for lead roles on famous shows that we've heard of today. It meant more in the beginning than it did later on, because in the beginning I was like, this showed that he truly believed in me and he really wanted the best for me. And I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
Um, it's people like that um, it's it's that kind of belief in a person that I
Mm-hmm.
look for in like a friend or like someone that I want to be close to. Like, I want to
Yes.
believe in that person as much as they'll believe in me. And that takes a lot. Because he wasn't making money from that, but you start off humbly and you grow and you grow, and then you book bigger things, or you fill a whole stadium full of people one day. I mean, I would love to one day speak on the type of level that Les Brown would
Mm.
speak on. He's my favorite motivational speaker, and
Mine too. That's funny.
yeah, man, he's fire. He got me through some tough times. So
Yes. Yeah. A year, well, about 2 years ago, I started going through a major life change, like just majorly. And I plan on, with the more motivational content I'm putting out, sharing more of my story. But, and I do in my speeches. But, anyways, yeah, it was about 2 years ago. I needed a change. I had to, and everything in my life was upside down. I had just went through a divorce. I was just, yeah, things were crazy, and I needed to recalibrate. And I had just become scared and afraid in life. Like we were talking about, the opposite of the motivation. You know what I mean? Like, not the type
yeah,
of fear that was motivating me anymore. And I remember, Les Brown was crucial in that. Like, at the time, I didn't know who I could really be around, who I could really trust. And I was guarded. I didn't want, you know what I mean? I didn't want anyone around. So basically, my inner circle just consisted of people that I have not met yet, which is like Les Brown and Eric Thomas. And you know what I mean? Just different motivational speakers that just encouraged me. And but at the end of the day, I had to wake up and I had to find the video and I had to play it. It's not, but I'm just saying, like, there takes effort to get yourself out of a situation, even if you're
yeah,
relying on someone else to help you do it. It takes your initiating that conversation, or you trying to go to that source for help. But anyways, I say all this is to bounce back. The reason I love asking the routine question is, especially in the early process, is what people see now is not what people would have seen then. Basically, what I'm saying is where you're at now is not where you started at, but you had to start. And oftentimes it's the start that stops most people. We have to get started, and we have to realize that the routine's not going to be perfect. It isn't going to be just this, whatever, like this, just ironed out. Every second is used the best to the second it can be used, and it's like, no, there's going to be
yeah.
times where we're like, man, I wasted an hour there. That
Oh
didn't
yeah,
go planned at all, and there's going to be those moments to not psych ourselves out and to realize when we have the drive. I love when you said, like, when you could no longer afford acting classes, you're like, all right, I'm going to the library. I'm just going to read. I'm going to read what the greats did. I'm going to study their movements. I'm going to study the scripts. I'm going to study whatever it is. I love that, because where there's a will, there's a way, right? Like, I might not be able to afford the class. Some people say, well, I can't afford the class, so I can't do it. Okay, I can't afford a class, but I'm still going to do it. I have no option, because it's what I want and it's what I'm going to have. And so I'm going to do it. I don't care. You know what I mean? I don't care what obstacles in front of me. I'm going to figure out a way around it. And I think sometimes we have to realize that it's like some obstacles you don't go through, you get around. You know what I mean? You get around
Yeah.
them. Sometimes you got to get through them, but regardless, you get around them, you get through them. Another thing I loved, so huge on this. I'm going to write a book on this, and I keep putting it out there because I'm going to speak it into existence. I'm going to make it happen. Um, it's called Starting Five. I believe the people that you have, your inner circle, they're so crucial on your developing that mindset to accomplish your dream or your goal. So, like you said, now you're in this environment where everyone is focused. Yeah, they're focused on different aspects of entertainment or whatever they're pursuing, but they're all focused, and that focus is rubbing off on you. Likewise, like you said, you could have been in a negative environment, and it would have made a negative Joshua, right? Like we become the people we're around. We hear it as a kid, and we say, no, no, no. It's true. It's
Yeah.
100% true. And so whatever you put into the machine is what you're going to get out of the machine. If you're constantly putting negative thoughts in your mind, then you're going to have a negative attitude. You're going to have negative speech. You're going to have negative actions. If you constantly be putting positive in it, you're going to have positive all the things that I just said.
True.
And that energy, that synergy, when we connect with different people, because we are relational beings. So when we're able to connect with different people, it's important. And so I really related to when you were like, yeah, man, I admired his like work ethic and dedication. And then I admired his inspiration. And then I admired his creativity. It's like I do the same with my friends now. I want to constantly point out the things that I see in them because they may not know it, but I'm at a point in my life just because I've known you does not mean you're going to be in my inner circle. I used to live where it didn't matter if I knew you for 5 minutes or 5 years. If you wanted to be in the inner circle, you can be. Come on, come on. Now I'm more protective of it. And it's not because I'm guarded, it's because I have boundaries. And I realized in that season that I was in that being guarded comes from insecurity and hurt, and having boundaries comes from confidence and strength. Knowing your worth and knowing your value and knowing what you want your life to be, you become very focused on that. And you start to eliminate the things that will not help you produce that. And I find it very
Yeah.
awesome that as you're in this journey, that's what's happening to you. Like you said, God's putting these things in your life where it's like, if you're going to make, if you're going to bake a cake, you got to have the ingredients. You got to have the eggs. You got to have the,
Exactly.
I don't know how to cook, but the baking soda or whatever, the water, the milk, butter. There's stuff that goes into it. And the same way, if you're going to make dreams reality, it's hard and it's difficult, but it's possible. But it takes the recipe. Not only do you have to have the recipe, but you also have to have the ingredients. And so you're going to have those people. You're going to have that team. You're going to have those resources. And they come as we continue the process. So, anyways, I wanted to point that out. I thought that was really awesome that you're talking about being in this environment and this inspiring environment. And
Kind of the five people rule you were talking about. It reminded me of there's this really dope podcast called Community Made, and you should check it out. I'll send it to you after we're done.
yeah.
It's one of I started a business a couple years ago based off of this podcast. That's how inspired I was by it,
Yeah.
because it's a podcast about genuinely growing your network, basically, and not even a network, but growing a community around you, right? And Jason Gaynard is the host. He talks about specifically, I wanted to mention the part where he talks about how he has. It's so cool because he breaks down his network. Basically, he's like, here's my fringe network, here's my like closest people, here's my fans, here's my once in a while acquaintances that could be of value to me and I could be of value to them down the road, or once in a while we're of value to each other. And there's different times he basically broke down like how often you should be in contact with these people. But then he also in another episode, he talked about how he was around basically people that were above him in all areas all the time, because he just wanted to grow. So he was the worst in every single category: finances, self-motivation, fitness, business. He was the worst in all those. And also all of his friends at the time were way better than him in that. And he got to a point where he was like, it was awesome. I was taking in all this information. I was learning. I was growing very fast, and it made me uncomfortable not being at their level yet. So it forced me to grow pretty quickly. But he didn't like always being the worst person in each group. And so he said, basically, after he learned that he should split up his time between people that he can learn from, people that he can grow with on the same level, and people that he can teach basically or help in some type of way that are not where he's at. And I think that's important, because if you spend too much time with people at the same level, well, you're not going to quite have that knowledge that the people above both of you are going to have. But if you spend all this time with people that are just above you, you may feel like you're learning a lot very quickly. And I think it's important to be around those people a good chunk of time. But also, I think giving is a really, for me in my life, it's a big aspect of my life. I think giving is something that you should do in private. I think you should do it also in public at times. And what I mean by that is give without having to shout out that you're giving. Because a lot of people, when I see people, like, I've seen some people, doing like some church event, or I don't know, some like, oh, I'm going to go to this protest and support this cause. It's like, why do you have to post about it? Why can't you just be there and be present and just, really be about it, rather than just show everybody that you're doing this? Like, when I give, most of the time it's in private, whether it's I'm helping someone out with their rent, or if I'm helping someone out, if I'm buying an acting class for somebody, or if I'm buying books, like self-improvement books for people, I don't shout that out. And when people repost, if I give them a book and they shout me out saying thank you, I don't repost it, because I don't want to seem like that guy that's just like posting things I'm giving for clout. It's like, I give from my heart, not because I want followers. And so I think it's important to split up that time like Jason does. And because you can learn from all three types of people, from people you're giving to. Sometimes you learn from people you're teaching, and very sometimes true. It's nice to be able to talk to people on the same level as you and be like, hey, what have you been struggling with? Well, at this level, it sucks in this area because of this reason. And then you talk to your mentors, and it's just like, okay, how do I fix this thing? How do I fix this financial area? Or how do I fix this acting area, or directing area, or business area? And then they're like, well, this is how I do it in X, Y, and Z. And also, I'll just say last point is that Jason made the point that that when it comes to mentorship, it's good to find mentors in every single area, rather than try to find a mentor that's good at everything. It's hard to find that, because you might have a multimillionaire financial mentor who's been through 5 divorces, so why would I ask him for marriage advice? Or that same guy might be extremely overweight. Why would I ask him for fitness advice? You know what I mean? Sure. Mm-hmm. So he was saying, like, have a fitness mentor, have a financial mentor, business mentor, motivational mentor, director mentor in my case, or whatever. And I think that's important to have those different areas, because I think a lot of times people, they'll see success in one area of someone's life and they're like, oh, they must be great in all these other areas. Like, no. Just because, Les Brown's great speaking on stage doesn't mean he's necessarily good at working out. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I wouldn't go to Les Brown for workout advice. I go see some super ripped dude and be like, all right, let's work. Les Brown's not ripped. He's like in his 70s or 80s. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know how old he is now, but I'm not going to go to him for workout advice. I'll go to him for, hey man, my mindset's not in a good place right now.
Yep. Even at 80, I'd go to him.
Yes.
Because
I'll go to him till the day he dies. Mm-hmm. I'll be very loyal. I am a very loyal Les Brown fan. And
me too.
He's my guy, man.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. When you were mentioning that, and not to spend too much time on this, because I want to be mindful of your time and I want to get a few other things, but when you were mentioning that, I definitely want to check out this podcast. And I think it's awesome that it inspired you to start a business and all that, because it's so true. And the concept of the starting 5, I didn't fully explain it, but I basically just break it down off a basketball team. So if you have the 98 Bulls, they're on their sixth championship, right? And you have Michael Jordan, he's on the starting five, but there's players on the bench too. Those are people you teach, right? There's
Yeah.
fans in the stands, those are the people you inspire. You might not talk to every single one of them, but they see what you do, and you're influencing them, even though you may never have a verbal conversation with them. Because how could you have a verbal conversation when you're the biggest in the world, right? Like, it would be
Right.
impossible. But you have that influence on those people. Your starting five, you're all getting better together. I mean, when you have Rodman and you have Michael Jordan and you have Scottie Pippen, they're beasts, and you have other players that are coming into that, and so we're learning from each other. You're making me better. Jordan is making me better. Scottie Pippen's making me better. Dennis Rodman never played basketball at all in high school, and then somehow makes college team and goes pro. Like, who does that? I'm learning from him. You know what I mean? And so now everybody's making everyone better, but we also have the coaches. We need that triangle offense. You know what I mean? We need Phil Jackson to give us that triangle offense. Everything is part of it, right? And so it's so
Yeah.
crucial to realize, and just like you said, like, this person might be super creative, and that's what they bring to the table. That's the value they add in my life. And now the value I add in their life, I'm sure, is going to be inspiration and motivation, because that's just what I'm, accustomed to. And then what this person's offering is like this work ethic, and I'm like, oh man. And so everyone is just getting better together because we're all on the journey. But like you said, we need those mentors. We need those people that's already been there. It's like, okay, this is what you're gonna have to do here. You want to pivot there. You need this. Oh, you want to do Disney? Yeah, you're gonna have to have improv. You know what I mean? Like, you need those people that's got your six, that know where you want to go and how to get there. It's so
Right.
important. So important. So I don't know why I broke down that whole basketball illustration, because I do not watch basketball at all. But I find it's a great illustration, though. It's like the perfect illustration of how I feel like we need to approach life
I agree.
in
I
any
agree.
field, no matter what you're doing. So as the story progresses, and we may have to do a part two because I know we have like 10 minutes, but as the story progresses, and we're there in the kind of the beginning stages of like you said, you have the manager, you're moved into LA, you're in the process, the routine's kind of new. When does this, I want to see how I want to ask this. When does this, did you have that moment, here's how I want to word it, did you have that moment where it was like, I don't know if I'm getting the traction I want, or like we were saying earlier, it was the five people in the theater when I expected one? Or did you have that moment? The reason I ask that is I think a lot of times, and I'm the same way, like, I record a motivational video, I put it out on YouTube, and I'm like, this is the one. This is the one. Not that I want like just the million views, but I do want the million views, because that's a million people who could get impacted. You know what I mean? It's about the mission. It's about the goal. I want all eyes on it because I want all eyes to be inspired. You know what I mean? And so, but there's these moments where I put it out there, and when I put it out there, it doesn't get the response that I thought it was going to get. And then that makes me check myself as to a few things. Why am I doing this in the first place? Is it really a passion? Yes, because I'd be doing this regardless. Like, I'd be like talking speeches in my car with no one in it. Like, I'd just be doing that. So yes,
Yeah.
this is what I'm supposed to do. Secondly, just because this is what you're supposed to do doesn't mean you're doing it in the way that's going to yield the best results, right? So
Facts.
maybe I need to check my process. Maybe I need to look at the way I'm doing things. Maybe it's not my dream that's the problem. Maybe it's the way I'm approaching my dream that's the problem. Like, a lot of people think what they're doing is impossible. It's not impossible. Maybe the way you're going about it's impossible. Because if someone else has done it, then it's possible.
Exactly.
But maybe your approach is what's making it impossible, right?
I-
And so I go through this series of things that brings me back to, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Let's buckle down. Let's just keep going. So I wanted to ask you that question because I'm sure in the entertainment world, there is a moment where you're going to have that, like, come to yourself meeting. Some people say come to Jesus meeting, where you're like, all right, what am I doing? Like, is this really going to be what I want it to be, or do I need to pick something else? Have you had that moment? And if you did, how did you pivot?
Yeah, I'll say a couple of things. One is I believe that if a person can't handle something small that God gives them, they're most likely not going to be able to handle something big, right? So if I didn't have that, if I couldn't handle that room of, if I couldn't handle one person that I expected to come to the, and even if one person didn't even show up, if it was an empty room and I just put a, if I put a, my live stream on and one person was virtually, and it was my mom, let's say, you know, if I can't handle that, how am I going to handle an auditorium full of thousands of people, standing in front of a stage and wanting that? And I'm a big believer in that, starting small, there's a reason for it. It's because it's preparing you for what's going to, for bigger things. And there are bigger challenges that come up with bigger projects, with bigger budgets, with more people involved on different things, and it's important that you're able to handle the little challenges and the little defeats at times, because once they get bigger and bigger, it's going to be a lot harder to bounce back, and you have to have a stronger mindset when things when there's more on the line, like when there's more on the line for, like, let's say a TV show that I booked or a feature film or something, that if at the last second they're like, you know what, we're going to go with this other actor, you gotta be able to handle that. You got to compose yourself and not be able to, you got to, realize, hey, there's a door that's open for me. There's a door that's open for him, but I'll leave you with this, and then we'll do a part 2 because there's so much more we could talk about.
Yes, definitely.
So there were a couple moments where on my journey I felt like giving up. Of course, we all have these moments, right? Mm-hmm. And one was when I was I guess start from the beginning. When I was 14, I won't get too deep into the story. I wanted to end my life when I was a freshman in high school. And so, long story short, and I can get to a longer version next time, but I went home one day.
That longer I don't want to interrupt you, but I do want that longer version because I have the same story, man. So
yeah.
Anyways, and I think it'll help a lot of people. So go ahead.
Totally. Yeah. Basically, yeah, it was a tough time for me in high school. I was in 9th grade. And yeah, I wanted to end my life this one day. My girlfriend at the time had broken up with me, and I was heartbroken like every 9th grader out there. And I was getting bullied a little bit, and I just, I was just going through a depression. And so I felt like my life was over. So I went home that day to end my life. And basically I went home and I was going to stab myself. Basically, I was going to go out pretty hardcore actually, yeah. But I was going to do that. But I was counting down, and I was like, all right, you can either go back to hell or you can be at peace. Which is the wrong mindset to have, and obviously. And I just hear this, I'm counting down from like 5, I'm like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm about to stab myself. And then I hear a knock on the door, on my back door. And I was like, who was that? I thought it was my neighbor. So it's like, I waited. I was like, all right, here we go. Let's do it again. 3, 2, 1. And then I hear another knock. I was like, who is that? So I was like, all right, I'll just wait one more minute. So I waited another minute, and then the knocking stopped. They didn't knock again. So I was like, oh, it's probably my neighbor. Just went away. Didn't expect anyone to be home. And then I was like, all right, now's the time. About to do it for real this time. So I'm like, all right, 3, 2, 1. And I see my front door open. I was in my living room, which is near my front door. It was like I had like a front porch, and I see my front door open, and I see a figure out the window, and I couldn't really make out who it was. And the figure saw what I was doing and opened up the window that was on my front porch and went through and grabbed the knife for me and saved my life. And that person was my best friend at the time. And I didn't even know he was going to come over. I mean, he lived miles away, but he had a feeling that day that something was wrong. And so he ran all the way to my house from his house, and he saved my life. And that was one of those moments where I realized I had purpose in life. Yeah. And I didn't know what it was yet. Fast forward a couple years, when I was 16 or 15, yeah, around 16, when I was first started modeling, my mom asked me, what do you want to do for a career after high school? And I was like, well, I want to continue modeling, and maybe I'll get into acting one day, we'll see. And she was like, oh, you got to pick something realistic. And that crushed me, because I had a single mom, and she was kind of like my hero and the person I looked up to. So I was like, all right, well, if my mom doesn't believe in me and doesn't believe I can make a career out of this, why should I believe in me? And so then I was ready to give up on modeling, and 2 weeks later, my agent calls me and says, hey, Nerf wants to hire you. I was like, Nerf, like Nerf guns? And they're like, yeah. I was like, whoa. So I was like, okay. So I go to the shoot. At the end of the shoot, I asked the director of photography, I said, hey, where's these photos going to go? He said, well, you'll be on some billboards, you'll be in some catalogs, but more importantly, you'll be on the cover of the Nerf gun box, which is going to be sold in 51 different countries around the world. And when I heard that, I was like, dang, my face is going to be worldwide. And I was just about to give up on modeling and entertainment.
That's awesome.
And it was crazy, man. And that's when I realized, okay, I think my purpose is in this direction of entertainment. And so then the whole thing happened when I moved out to LA. That was another moment that opened my eyes. And those are like the three biggest moments for me that I realized. I first realized I had a purpose, because God was like, your life is not meant to be up yet. Yeah. Then I realized my purpose is in entertainment. When I was about to give up. And this is like prior to, I was still in high school. I didn't even know I was going to come out here years later to LA.
Yeah, and it's just a dream at that point.
Yeah. And I was just like, I guess I got to keep going in this direction. So, all right, I won't give up on it. And so, and every time as I've been out here, the past 6 years, whenever there's been like a moment where I was like, you know what, maybe I should just throw in the towel. Maybe this isn't for me. I would book something big. It's weird. It's like God would be like, nah, you're staying in this. I need you here for a reason. Keep going, and just wait, and just trust my plan for you. And I'm like, all right, okay, I get it. And I mean, my first national commercial I had booked was a Gatorade commercial, and it I didn't even have to audition for it. I booked that off of an iPhone 6 headshot, taken off of my phone. And yeah, and it was a national commercial. It made me SAG. It got me in the Actors Union. And I mean, that was like out of the blue, and there's moments like that where it's just like you're struggling, then bam. It's like, here's a nice little reminder. You're on the right path, It's just, but the thing is, I'll leave you with this. Even though these things have happened in my life, what I've learned is your journey pivots in different directions as you move, in your purpose, because your purpose evolves. Yes. And for me, my purpose now, it's not just acting anymore. It's making the films that I really feel like will have an impact on people, and films that I genuinely want to create, and stories I want to tell. It's less now for me about I got to book that Disney show, or I got to be on Netflix. It's more like, no, I want to make my own movie, and I want to distribute it on Netflix, or distribute it on Amazon Prime, or distribute it domestically and have a theatrical release. That's where I'm at now, where in my journey I'm like, I can have more of an impact if I'm directing, writing, and producing my own films that are telling or spreading the message that I want to spread, rather than I still act, I'm still in other people's projects, but my purpose has moved more into that direction where I'm kind of creating my own conglomerate, just like you are with Vivo. So
I definitely wanted to ask that, because I want people to realize all the time, because I say it all the time, but I want people to understand you're not the only one who feels like this. We all have moments where we feel like we want to give up. You know what I mean? We all have moments where we think, all right, is this just how it ends? Or is this how it, we struggle with that. And that's the reason why we have to actively pursue getting rid of self-doubt, because self-doubt sucks. It's the only doubt that can stop you. The doubt of me can't stop you. The doubt of someone else can't stop you. It's the doubt of yourself. It's when you believe their doubt. That's when it stops you. And that's why it's so powerful. If you can find, because I was the same way when I was going through that pain as a child, homeless at 15, you know what I mean? Like parents, just crazy. And yeah, I wanted to end it. And then there was this moment where I finally was able to find purpose in the pain. The worst thing you can go through is thinking your pain is pointless. Because if you think your pain is pointless, there's no hope. And you can't go buy a 6-pack of hope. You can't go buy hope at the corner store. They don't sell it there, right? And so purpose is the only thing that gives you hope in pain. And it was in that moment that I found my purpose, because it was, no, you have to get through this. Because you're the one to share the story of hope. You have to get through it for the next one. Even if it's just one. Just one. That's all I need. Just one. It's going to be millions. But I'm all about just reaching that one. And that's what it's about. It's one by one. It's one by one. It's one by one. And those moments of being reminded of the purpose help you get through the next obstacle, the next pain, the next moment. So when you have that struggle of thinking, man, I don't, man, like what? Then you're reminded of the purpose in it, right? So like you said now, it's like, man, it's way bigger than just being on Disney. It's way bigger than just Netflix. It's about having a series on Netflix that conveys the message. You know what I mean? It's about owning the project. You know what I mean? And writing the project and putting the people in the project that convey the things that I want to convey, because this is the message that we're going to leave the world. We're writing a story every day. What's the story going to be? A lot of us give the pen to our lives, to our problems, our pains, our past, other people, their opinions. Take the pen back. Put the pen in your hand and write what you want to write, because you've been given the pen, right? The pen's not of your own accord. It's a gift. But you can't use the gift the way the giver intends if you don't understand the magnitude of that gift, and you don't recognize that it's a gift, you don't recognize that it's yours, no one else's. And so anyways, I could talk all day, man. It's really good stuff. We got to do a part 2. I want to be mindful of your time, though, because I'm very grateful for it. So, yeah. Anything else you want to say before we close it out?
I'll just say, if you're out there and you're going through a hard time right now, just know, as we've been talking about, that, you're not alone, and that there's someone out there that has been through what you've been through, or has been through worse, or, is also going through it. And just because, like I said before, something looks successful in one area of someone's life doesn't mean the rest of their life is just as successful. I was just listening to stumbled across a Jordan Peterson motivational clip in like the YouTube stories thing, and anyway, he was talking about that same point, comparison. You're driving down the highway and you see that guy in that convertible Porsche, and you're like, dang, I wish I could be driving that car, man. Like, I wish he's probably living the life. But little do you know, he wants to wrap his Porsche around that cement barrier over there at 120 miles per hour. He's thinking about ending his life. Looks are very deceiving. And I'll leave you with this. I always tell people 2 things. One, I assume 2 things about every single person I meet. I always assume that the person I'm speaking to is the most successful, richest, awesome, coolest person, highest regarded person ever.
I love that.
But I also assume they may be going through the worst thing possible in their life. They could be, what I see on the first thing I just mentioned may not be a reflection of the interior side of them, or what they're dealing with behind closed doors that I can't see. So I'm always mindful that I may be talking to a successful person, but that person might be going through something. Because I never want to assume someone's less. I'd rather choose the higher road and look at someone of high regard and assume that they have stuff going on, because we all do. We all do.
I
And
gotta write that down. Treat them like the best, because they may be going through the worst. I love that.
yeah.
Dude, yeah. Great way to end it. Great way to end it. Joshua Smith, I appreciate you. We got to do part 2. Everyone
Thanks,
go
man.
check him out. I got his socials up top. And, yeah, anything to look for that you got coming out soon? Or
Check out, I've been focusing a lot more on my podcast too. It's coming out. It's called Genuine Connections Podcast. And there's actually 2 of them out there. Mine's Genuine Connections. You'll see it's like a microphone. It just says Genuine Connections on it. It's not the one with the 2 girls, if you've come across that one. But yeah, it's Genuine Connections. And I basically do have a similar style of conversations that we're having on this show. I interview entertainment creatives, and my theme with the show is I hate surface level conversations in entertainment, so I created the podcast to go beneath the surface with entertainment creatives. So check out Genuine Connections podcast. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, and if there's any films that come out soon, I'll let you know.
all right. All right.
All
Well,
right,
this has
Shawn.
been Inspired Conversations. I'm Shawn. This has been Joshua Smith. Thank y'all for watching.